Good evening and welcome to the Sierra Club Lower Eastern Shore Group's webinar, Plastic Pollution and Solutions on Maryland's Lower Eastern Shore. I am Cindy Dillon, Chair of the Lower Eastern Shore Group, lead for our Group Zero Waste team, and Group Representative to the Maryland Chapter Zero Waste Leadership Team. It's wonderful to see so many people here who are interested in learning more about plastic pollution and interested in finding solutions to this crisis. This program is being recorded this evening, and a link to it will be posted once it's ready on our Lower Eastern Shore Group webpage. Christina Hulslander, a member of our executive committee, will be our moderator for the evening. And we're going to start our program with Joe Jankowski, another of our executive committee members, giving a brief summary of the film, The Story of Plastic. Following that, we'll have opening remarks by each of our 5 panelists, and then a question and answer comment period. Please put your questions in the Q&A tab, and Susan Olson, our vice chair, and Joe Jankowski will direct those questions to the panelists during our question and answer period. If we don't have time to answer all the questions during this program, we will follow up with you afterwards. Then after the Q&A, we will have a brief closing remarks period by each of our panelists, and then a wrap up and closing. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge the following elected officials who've taken the time to attend this evening. From Dorchester County, the Commissioner Lenny Pfeffer. From Cambridge Ward 1, Commissioner Brian Roche. From Wicomico County Council members William Kane, John Cannon, and Josh Hastings. From Delmar, the Deputy Mayor, Lord Unseld Jr. From Hebron, the Town Commissioner, Amelia Handy. From Salisbury, Mayor Jake Day, who is also one of our panelists. From Salisbury City Council, April Jackson. And from Worcester in Berlin, the Town Council member, Shanika Nichols. And from Ocean City, Town Council member, Frank Knight. Now I would like to introduce Christina Hulslander, our moderator for the evening. Christina?
Thank you, Cindy, and welcome everybody. We are delighted to have you here. I am Christina Hulslander, a member of the Lower Eastern Shore Executive Committee. I currently serve as a secretary, but for tonight I am happy to serve as a moderator for our panel discussion this evening. Before we hear from our panelists, we'll have a brief summary of the story of plastic film from my colleague, Joe Jankowski, who is also another member of the executive committee. Joe.
Hi, welcome again, everybody. The story of plastic tells the history of plastic with key messages about its environmental impact. In summary, plastic was developed by the fossil fuel industry to use the byproducts of refining. Most of the plastic ever produced continues to impact the environment. The fossil fuel industry has diverted attention from plastic's damage to the environment through several campaigns. It began in the 1950s when they started Keep America Beautiful to put the blame on consumers for the litter. In the 1970s, they said we need to recycle, and thereby they were getting local governments to pay the cost to process plastic waste. In 2005, they lobbied for the U.S. Energy Policy Act, which exempts the industry from environmental or health regulations. In 2015, they lobbied to lift the ban on oil and gas exports, causing an explosive growth in fracking and reducing the cost of plastic. In 2017, the fossil fuel industry received $5.2 trillion globally in subsidies. In 2019, benevolent fossil fuel industry said, we're going to commit $1.5 billion to clean up plastic waste. Meanwhile, that same group was spending $204 billion on new plants to produce plastic. Plastic has the following environmental impacts: Extraction and refining increases cancer rates in the surrounding communities. Production creates numerous chemical compounds, most of which are not regulated. Plastic packaging has displaced aluminum, glass, and paper, which are more easily recycled than plastic. Plastic particles are found in 83% of tap water and 93% of bottled water. Used plastic is disposed of in the following ways: 32% as litter, with 8 million metric tons per year in the ocean. 40% goes directly into landfills. 14% is incinerated, which produces toxic gases and toxic fly ash. 14% is recycled, but reality, 98% is downcycled, and therefore only 2% is effectively recycled. On a positive note, the video notes that recycling and composting reduces the waste processing cost. Extended producer responsibility will reduce residuals, and government bans of single-use plastic are becoming a global trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much for sharing that. It is easy to be overwhelmed with issues like plastic pollution and climate challenges and feel like we can't possibly make an impact. But truthfully, we are always making an impact. We have the opportunity to intentionally create a more positive impact than negative. Tonight, we get to hear from leaders within our community who are active in positive ways as they address the plastic problem from different angles. The information shared tonight will inform you of what's happening locally, and hopefully will also serve as a catalyst for generating additional ideas on perpetuating positive impacts. I applaud each of you for your attendance tonight. Your presence here is a positive action already. Thank you for your presence. You will learn from our different perspectives on the plastic issue. And when we get to know more, perhaps we get to discover better approaches. And when we know better, we can do better. I now have the privilege of introducing our speakers and offering each of them a few minutes to share with us before we move on to a question and answer session. Again, as stated earlier in the webinar, if you have questions you'd like to pose to our panelists, please put that in the question and answer section down below, and later in the program, we will take on whatever questions we are able to within our time frame. Our first speaker tonight, James Pierson, is an associate professor at the Horn Point Laboratory in Cambridge, Maryland, which is part of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. He is a biological oceanographer who specializes in zooplankton ecology using a combination of field observations, laboratory experiments, and computer modeling. Jamie has been working on a variety of projects in the Chesapeake Bay since arriving on the Eastern Shore in 2006, with a focus on how dead zones affect plankton food webs. He was recently funded by the NOAA Marine Debris Program to conduct research in the Choptank River on the fate and transport of microplastics. Jamie, thank you for sharing about your research and perspective on this issue.
Sure. Thank you, Christina, and thank you everyone who tuned in, and thanks to the Sierra Club for putting this together and my fellow panelists here. So I'll just talk a little bit about the project that we have started. Christina gave a nice introduction to kind of my background here. So we're funded through the NOAA Marine Debris Program. And when I say we, William Narden, who looks like is on the call, as far as I can tell, is the lead PI on that project. He's the principal investigator. And the overarching goal of the project is to understand the fate and transport of microplastics in the Choptank River. So the Choptank is the tributary to the Chesapeake here, right? Goes right through Cambridge. And it's a system that we've studied a lot. We know pretty well. There's a lot of marshes, a lot of grass beds throughout the Choptank. And one of the things that we're really interested in is how the shape and the flow of the chop tank interact with those grass beds and the marshes to either trap particles or allow them to transit through the river and out to the bay and the ocean. So as the trailer mentioned, all of our plastic debris starts on land. There's a lot of attention paid to the Great Pacific garbage patches, but all of this stuff starts on land, moves through our ecosystems, and before it gets out into the ocean. So we're going to do 3 things for this project. We're going to sample the water and the sediment in the Chop Tank River to see if we can understand the problem of microplastics in our system. There has been a lot of other work in other regions of the Chesapeake Bay. The Chop Tank has not been sampled for microplastics much. We're also going to do degradation experiments. Not all plastic is created the same. So there's different types of plastics, and we want to understand how those different types degrade in different situations in the marsh, in grass beds, in the water, things like that. And then we're going to put it all together in a big synthetic model. And that's a big part of what William is going to do. We're going to test different scenarios of restoration, of different flow rates, of different plastic loads, so plastic inputs to the system, to see how all of these things change. And we're going to work with stakeholders. We're going to work with stakeholders and agency groups to see what kinds of questions and what information they really need to get a handle on the problem of microplastic marine debris.
Thank you so much. It's very important research that you're doing, and we look forward to the questions that our attendees have for you and others as we move through the program. Thank you so much, Jamie. And now our next speaker, Jennifer Albero, is the recycling coordinator at the Wicomico County landfill. She is a Salisbury State College graduate, majoring in biology, and has been environmentally sensitive since her youth. Jennifer worked as a zookeeper at the Salisbury Zoo for 18 years when she was involved with many different animal conservation projects. She eventually moved on to the Wicomico County landfill, where she has had numerous positions, from working the scales to office associate, and in 2017 became recycling coordinator. Jennifer has hands-on experience with the entire waste stream process and the location of away that we all seem to know is where the waste goes. She has become very passionate about recycling, the global problem plastic waste is causing environmentally, and the difficulties with recycling plastic. Jennifer, we appreciate you sharing your expertise and your perspective.
Well, the main thing that I deal with here at the landfill, or we all deal with here at the landfill, is the amount of contaminants that come in with the plastic recycling. People struggle to see whether it's a 1 or 2 or onward down to the number 7s. We can only recycle narrow neck containers, 1s and 2s. Those are the only ones that there's a market for right now. The rest of the recycling that's plastic is trash. We get a lot of just garbage in with our recycling. A lot of styrofoam, we get vinyl, we get hypodermic needles, we get dead animals, you name it, dirty diapers. That's what comes in with our plastic recycling. And 9 times out of 10, it's in a big giant plastic trash bag that's tied at the end. So if you can imagine a big warehouse full of an enormous mountain of bags and this other waste. That's what we are asked to recycle into bales that we can sell. The problem with recycling plastics is you need either people on the ground to do it, or you need an optic sorter. Optic sorters are multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment. The county doesn't have that kind of money to spend on a piece of equipment that could quickly run through the types of plastic and sort them. So that means that we have used work release inmates in the past. And unfortunately, since the pandemic has hit, we don't have those inmates. So a lot of people are noticing on the sides of the roads, the amount of trash that's building up there. That's because in the past we had 3 road crews from the detention center that went around and cleaned that up. We no longer have them, and that trash is building up. And just like us, we're dealing with this mountain of plastic that is it takes anywhere from 10 to 14 men to go through and sort through that plastic. So that's one of our pictures of the room, and that's what we deal with. So you can just imagine what a mess it is. We can't, you know, recycle our way out of this. The recycling industry has fed us this lie and convinced us, because I get calls every day about it, that there's a chasing triangle and there's a number on it. It must be recyclable. It isn't. And there are times, or some of the products they look exactly the same. They have different numbers on them. So can you imagine with that mountain of plastic trying to decipher in those little triangles which one's a 1, which one's a 2, and which one isn't? So it is a mess. Now we are able to bail certain plastics, HDPE colored, natural, and also PPE. And we have found markets for those. So when we're able to sort, we can, you know, bail it and ship it. And they, you know, do change it into other products, resins for benches and what have you, but it does get downcycled. And you can't continuously recycle plastic, as I think they said in the movie. So, you know, what we need to do is support bans and support legislation that will change, you know, our attitudes about our convenience. You know, use it for 5 or 10 seconds and throw it away. We need to start paying attention to what we're putting in our trash cans, and you know, change our lazy behavior. And that's what you know, we've all become very complacent when it comes to what we put in a trash can and what we use for a few seconds. I mean, my favorite quote is, "It's pretty amazing that our society has reached a point where the effort necessary to extract oil from the ground, ship it to a refinery, turn it into plastic, shape it appropriately, truck it to a store, buy it and bring it home, is less of a problem than washing the spoon in the first place." That kind of says it all. And House Bill 307 is been introduced on the floor of Maryland's House, and it's for, you know, decreasing the environmental impact of plastic products, and it's the extender producer responsibility legislation. So, you know, voting makes a difference. I tell people all the time, get out and vote. Your voice can be heard and you can make a difference, and we can stop this. This is ridiculous. They're gonna poison all of us if we don't do something, and the time is now. Sorry.
I appreciate your passion. That's one of the things I love so much about Jennifer. We had the privilege of touring the Wicomico facility with her, and her passion, as you can see from her presentation, is contagious and so important in the role that she has. So Jennifer, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker, Mayor Jake Day, is the mayor of Salisbury, Maryland. Born and raised in Salisbury, he was elected to the city council and unanimously elected council president. Jake was elected as the Salisbury mayor in 2015 and re-elected in 2019. Under his leadership, Salisbury has addressed homelessness, opened its first youth community centers and recreational programs, borne witness to Maryland's fastest declining rate of opioid overdoses, the fastest dropping crime rate of any US city in the last decade, and I recently learned has moved to a 100% renewable energy, which is very exciting. Salisbury has become Maryland's fastest growing city and America's 7th fastest growing job market. Jake has a bachelor's degree in architecture from the University of Maryland, a master's degree in urban design from Carnegie Mellon University, and a Master of Science in Environmental Policy from Oxford University, with his distinction for his dissertation on the American lawn. Jake has had several positions in architecture and is a major in the United States Army, having served in Kenya, Somalia, Djibouti, receiving several medals and honors. He has been selected to the Next American Vanguard, Leadership Maryland, the Mayor's Institute on City Design, Smart Growth America Local Leaders Council, the Chesapeake Bay Program's Local Government Advisory Committee, and is president of the Maryland Municipal League. Jake has numerous community design awards and is also featured in the textbook, Becoming an Architect. Mayor Day, we look forward to your comments.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me all right? Excellent. Okay, good evening, everyone. And thank you for that lengthy introduction. Next time I'm gonna make sure we get that cut down. So look, there's so much to talk about and there's so much to tell you about, and I'm proud of our environmental record in our city. You know, we are, we've received some accolades and certifications that we've worked very hard for. We're a bird city, certified city, a bee-friendly city certified, which I guess you could just simplify by saying we're a birds and the bees city. We are a silver certified bike-friendly city, a Tree City USA, Sustainable Maryland certified, and we're a city that is putting our money where our mouth is in terms of ensuring that we have a healthy environment. We play host to the Youth Environmental Action Summit, have for the last several years. We have begun installing EV chargers around the city of Salisbury and implementing our flood mitigation plan. Some of the things I'm really proud of are that we have a stormwater utility, unlike many communities in Maryland, and that was, you know, at one point a hot potato in this state. But we're very proud of ours, and it's doing great work for us. As was mentioned, we're a 100% renewable city. We actually buy only wind power to support our electrical needs for the city of Salisbury. We're a significant consumer. I've been proud over the last few days to be a vocal advocate, not only for the extended producer responsibility bill that Ms. Albero just mentioned, which is an incredibly important piece of legislation, but also a proud supporter of the climate change environmental justice bill and the environmental human rights constitutional amendment being proposed for our state. Earlier today, and I'm going to talk in just a minute about my day to illustrate a point, but earlier today, we kicked off our participation in the Just City Mayoral Fellowship, where we are tackling the spatialized manifestation of environmental externalities and other externalities too, but the recognition that justice manifests itself physically and injustice does too. And there are 7 cities that we've joined: Madison, Duluth, Youngstown, Providence, Richmond, Charleston, and College Park. And we're addressing not only criminal justice issues, racial justice issues, but environmental justice as well. I'm also proud that we've cut nitrogen and phosphorus out of our wastewater treatment plant, 95 and 97% respectively, with the best performing wastewater treatment plant in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Also the newest major wastewater treatment plant in the watershed. And we are proudly working on a plan to implement adaptive parks around our city that are climate resilient. We've invested tens of millions of dollars into alternative and non-motorized transport systems, with much more to come. But let me tell you about how my day started. Today, I held my monthly mayor's open office hours, and we sat in the freezing cold because the coffee shop had closed its interior, and 12 people came over 3 hours. Each took about 15 minutes or so of my time. And 3 of them were there to talk about litter. Here's the thing about litter, and the thing about plastic litter in particular, and the insidious nature of it. You're asked to throw it away. And if one of you fails, the rest of you are asked to pay to clean it up. Every community in America has to make this happen. In our community, if it lands on private property, we pay nearly $750,000 per year to have code enforcement officers circulating our city every day, citing you if you have rubbish on your property. If it blows into the street, the public right of way, we sweep the street, every street, 410 lane miles twice per month, picking up that rubbish where it lays. The county and state do sweeping as well. We spend another $750,000 per year on that. Then if the litter dropped in Pittsville or Delmar or Fruitland or Church Street neighborhood or Camden neighborhood or on Route 13 or Route 50, if it finds its way into the stormwater management system and it reaches the Wicomico River in the center of our city, Once it finds its way there, we have floatable nets and catchment tools, and our staff has to relieve those nets weekly. Then we pay a staff to take a boat out 3 days a week to pick up floatables in the river. They're a thorn in our side because they're highly visible, but reflective of disorder, perceived of as indicative of mismanagement, a failure to pay attention to a visible problem, and a lack of care or concern. So what do we do now? We've got to work on public education. We've found that crowning champions of things like kindness and cycling and youth development and community gardens has had a major effect on the city psyche. So we're going to be appointing a secretary of our clean city. They're going to be able to develop committees and teams of cleaners. We've seen groups doing this successfully, the Fonts Foundation, Restore the Shore, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Wicomico Environmental Trust, and Salisbury University. Even the Downtown Doves partnership of Dove Point and the city. We're implementing new tools like Waste Shark. We're going to be putting an automated system into the water. This is a robotic trash collector, floatables collector that will be going into the Wicomico River, fully funded. But we also must stop it at the source. And for me, that means not only the extended producer responsibility legislation, but we've got to outlaw things like plastic bags. Single-use plastic bags are a nightmare for our waterways, for our environment. Maryland should, and if they don't, we are preparing plans to do it right here in Salisbury. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope I've given you the insight into a mayor's view of this problem, and I look forward to the conversation.
Mayor Day, thank you so much. Definitely exciting things going on in Salisbury. And now for a business owner's perspective, let me introduce our next speaker. Ryan James and his wife Neely are the owners of Mother's Cantina in Ocean City, Maryland. Since 2008, they have expanded to 2 restaurant locations and a package store, each within blocks of beautiful Ocean City beaches. In the last 14 years, the businesses have transitioned to zero plastic, compostable packaging, use of renewable energy, and local food sourcing, while keeping the bottom line in mind and offering a model of being environmentally and economically minded. Ryan takes every opportunity to publicly advocate for programs and policies that protect the environment, like the styrofoam ban and the proposed plastic bag ban in Maryland. As a result of his commitment to the environment, Ryan received the 2019 President Theodore Roosevelt Award from the Maryland League of Conservation Voters. And he recently became a certified climate leader through Al Gore's Climate Reality Project. Ryan, we're so glad for your participation and look forward to learning from your experiences.
Thank you so much. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thanks to everyone's attendance. Thank you to my fellow panelists, particularly you, Mr. Pearson. Thanks for all your work in the Choptank River, all those delicious crab cakes that we get and crab quesadillas that we make in the restaurant. That all comes from the Wye River, which feeds into the Choptank. And thanks, because without you and your efforts, we would have a lot less delicious crab cakes to eat. So thank you so much. And Mayor Day and everybody else, thanks for all your efforts. It's so inspiring to hear what everybody's doing. And speaking of what everybody's doing, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing on the small business level to really push push people's mindset away from plastic. What we've tried to really do is really do what we call choice engineering. And what we want to do is give people choices that aren't plastic and aren't single use and don't create waste. We've done that by switching away from carryout products and single-use products that are made of plastic, and we switched to other alternatives. In fact, we ran a 6-month case study on switching away from plastic bags to paper bags. We switched to a compostable and recyclable paper bag for all of our carryout food. We ran that for 6 months. I'm going to give you some data on how we did this and how it was successful. So for a 6-month period, the difference between a plastic bag and a paper bag is 2 cents. The paper bag was 4 cents a piece. The plastic bag was 2 cents a piece. What we did, when an employee in the restaurants would hit the to-go button, it would charge 2 cents to the consumer. If they ordered 8 bags worth of food, it would be 16 cents. So we hit that button 9,790 times in a 6-month period, raised a total of approximately $195 to compensate for the cost of the paper bags. And we received 0 complaints from doing so. I think that every restaurant's reputation is pretty transparent these days. All you have to do is go on Yelp and TripAdvisor. And if any restaurant's done anything wrong, and even if they haven't done something wrong, it's on Yelp. We were really watching our reviews, making sure that there weren't any patterns, and there were 0 complaints. Nobody complained in the store. Nobody complained on the internet. In fact, we determined that the microtransaction was either not even recognized or not even an issue for the person who did recognize the microtransaction. We had a little sign up by the carryout area that says the $2 charge is for environmentally friendly packaging. Some people would ask about it. We would explain that it was for paper bags instead of plastic bags. We also had some other environmentally friendly products that we use that I'll talk about in a little bit as well. We also determined that there was even a greater return on the investment because we were bringing in like-minded people to purchase our products over another product. So actually, if you looked at that 2 cent difference as a marketing dollar or a marketing spend, it actually paid for itself because people vote with their dollar, right? We all choose where to spend our money based on where our values align. And we found that people whose values aligned with us and were concerned about single-use plastics in their environment came and spent money with us. So it was win-win for everyone, and we were just really happy with the results. We want to get the message out to other small businesses to kind of empower them to do something similar or do the same thing, because the culpability lies with, we want to reduce, reuse, recycle in that order, right? So source reduction bills are always the top of the pyramid. We also want to then try and switch to a container that we can reuse instead of a single-use container, right? A glass, I see everybody drinking out of aluminum refillable bottles of water. That's great. That's a great way to do that, to reuse. So we found that the like-minded people really, really gravitated towards that. A couple other things that we've done, we switched to cornstarch straws instead of plastic straws. They completely biodegrade. They're edible. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could eat them if you wanted to. We also switched to a compressed sugar cane to-go box. It's not styrofoam. And all styrofoam is plastic injected with air. So it's the same problem with a different name. And so we switched to the compressed sugar cane that is actually, it's compostable, it's biodegradable, and you can reheat your food in it in the oven. If you want to reheat your food, you can put that go box right in the oven and heat it up. No need for more dishes, and you can't do that with styrofoam. You'd have a mess on your hands in your oven. So, we really found that was some great tactics that we used. Additionally, we have aluminum water bottles that are recyclable, and we also sell refillable water bottles right at our counter where you can purchase your to-go food. So you can buy an aluminum water bottle if you're here on vacation that you can use for the whole weekend. And again, that's part of our choice engineering. We want to give people the opportunity to make a better environmentally friendly choice. A couple other things and a couple other ways that other people in the community have helped us. The Surfrider Foundation, we are the first Ocean City, Maryland ocean-friendly restaurants. And we are also registered on the State of Maryland Green Business. We are a State of Maryland Green Business as well. And we are always looking for ways to innovate, to change our products in order to remove single-use plastics from our environment. So thanks for letting me talk to you guys a little bit about how my small business is trying to make a difference. And I'll just end with saying that, the culpability really lies with us small business owners, because as a consumer, you might use 1 or 2 plastic bottles a week, but as a producer and as a merchant, we can serve 500 of those a day. So it really starts with us, and the culpability, we really have to be smart about the products that we're selling. Thank you all very much.
Ryan, thank you so much. And you validate further that like-minded folks do support you. My husband's probably favorite Christmas gift was the gift card to your restaurant. So it's all good. We appreciate your trailblazing in the Ocean City restaurant industry. Just as a reminder, if you do have a question for our panelists, please note it in the question and answer section at the bottom of your Zoom commands, and we will see if we can get to those at the end of our session. And now our final speaker, Hema Bhaskaran, is a high school educator with a 15+ years of teaching my favorite subjects: biology, chemistry, environmental science, and advanced placement environmental science across from freshman to senior levels. Her focus has been developing 21st century skills through real world scientific exploration and problem solving. Hema has served as a mentor teacher for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Hema has empowered her students to find solutions to environmental issues. She was one of 9 teachers who represented Maryland as part of Nexus for Science Education Leadership. She was Maryland's 2014 Environmental Science Teacher of the Year, and in 2020, 2021, the Wicomico County Teacher of the Year and finalist for Maryland Teacher of the Year. She was also a recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching. Hema is currently the Science Supervisor for Wicomico County. Hema, we are so glad for your presence and your perspective.
Thank you, Christina, and good evening, everyone. I just want to first say wow to all the panelists, because I am going to tag each and every one of you to be our guest speaker at the next professional learning that we have for exclusively science teachers. So with that said, I wanted to share 3 different things that are happening in our schools. And although I'm sharing examples of what is happening in Wicomico County, I can vouch 100% and say that this is happening in every school system across the Eastern Shore. I'm here representing the Eastern Shore. So there are 3 prongs or 3 ways in which the education community is addressing the issues surrounding plastics. So the very first one is through curriculum. So kindergarten through high school, we have modules, lessons, units, or activities that educate our students on the issues surrounding plastic. To give you an example, we have a kindergarten read aloud book that talks about the story of a plastic bag. So we have the book writer and the illustrator come in and share the book, and students actually go in and explore their schoolyard and then identify a solution. So think about the same thing amplified at each grade level. So by the time our students reach the high schools, they are in a position where they have the knowledge, where they also have the skill sets that are needed to come up with innovative solutions. So that's at the curriculum level, that's at the instructional level. The second way we are looking at addressing the issues surrounding plastic is by providing our students opportunities to go outside. One of the things that I personally believe in, and I can again say that this is what our educators believe in across the county and across the Eastern Shore, is that we need to take our students outside, because if you don't love the place where you are passionately, then you won't have the value associated with the urge to do something about the issues surrounding. So again, kindergarten through high school, one of the primary goals is to get our students outside, to fall in love with our places, with what we value. And along those lines, looking at some of the issues that affect what they value and then finding solutions. And a few ways that we are doing this is through arts integration, through some of the service learning projects, through the Green School Initiative, again, focusing on all of those. And here is a picture of middle schoolers from Salisbury Middle. And all of these students in this picture are freshmen at the high school this year. So that's the second. And the third, and I have to say this is by far one of the most strongest prong is our community partnership, because I don't think we could accomplish 1% of what we are doing in our school systems without the partnerships. And thank you, Mayor Dave, for actually calling out the Youth Environmental Action Summit. With the Youth Environmental Action Summit, our students are able to not just identify the problems and the solutions, they are able to pitch their ideas and earn money to implement those solutions. So it's like Shark Tank, but for solving local environmental issues. So I want to give a huge shout out to Youth Environmental Action Summit for giving our students that opportunity. I actually, if you could please show slide number 3, I think that captures our partners, and this is the arts piece. The next one, please. Yep, and I just wanted to brag. The student is one of the students that I taught. And I also want to brag about the second picture. The city of Salisbury is awesome. Again, amazing partnership. So what you are seeing in this picture is a partnership between the city of Salisbury and our teachers, where the teachers are getting trained on some of the local initiatives so that they can include that as part of their instructions. So it's not just a top-down curriculum approach, it's like in the field, hands-on. I also want to call out the partnership that we have with the Wicomico County. We have a partnership where our students are able to go on field trips, take a tour of the recycling initiatives, the landfill, so that it's not just, they know where away is now, so they are passionately taking care of what they care about. And the entire idea, the primary goal of our education, the way it's structured, is to build those youth-adult partnerships to give our students the skills to actually come up with sustainable solutions that will make our community amazing, a place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hema. And to all of our panelists, you all are bringing something we all want and need, which is hope and ideas and positive momentum. And that is fantastic. We're going to move on to our question and answer session with our panelists. And thank you for the questions that have been submitted into the question and answer section. I'm going to pass off to my colleague, Susan Olson, to find out what our first question is. And a reminder to our panelists, if it is something that you feel like you want to contribute some comments to, please help us to know that with your a little bit of personal animation there. Susan.
Hi, everybody. Our first question is, what books, podcasts, and research books and materials are on the subject of plastic waste and plastic recycling would you suggest to explore? And I think that would be a good question for Hema, but before she answers that, Gary, were you able to unmute Dr. Surik? Is Dr. Surik there? Are you unmuted? Because Dr. Surik put in a really good list of books in the Q&A. Is she there? Maybe not. Well, maybe we'll go to you, Hema.
Hi.
Oh, there she is. There she is. Okay.
Yeah, I dropped in a list of ones that my class, who's also on this seminar or this webinar tonight, thank you so much. They'll be reading this semester, and people can reach out to me. I'm at SU, and I'm always happy to provide lists of books and articles for people to read. I also have electronic copies of some of these, so just reach out to me, happen to find them if you would like more information. Always happy to talk about garbage.
Sarah, did you put your email address in the chat? In the
I will,
not in the
I
chat.
will do it now.
Okay,
I will
great.
do it in the Q&A now.
That's perfect. Thank you. And Hema, could you add anything to that?
I highly recommend Plastic Toxic Love Story because the minute I heard my name, that was the book that came to my mind, and I saw that on the list as well. So highly recommend that one.
Okay, great. All right. And
I th-
let's see. The next question is, how do you keep from feeling discouraged about this situation? And I mean, a lot of people are working really hard on this issue. Is there a way to keep from getting discouraged? Let's see. Jamie, could you answer that one?
I can try. I think some of the other panelists probably haven't much. I think, listening to things like this, listening to the stuff that Ryan is doing, listening to the teaching that Hema's doing, people like Jennifer are out there and Mayor Day is out there really doing that stuff. I think just the fact that there are people who care and that are trying to make a difference is what keeps me going. So, and then I think the mayor has got his hand up. So
yeah, go ahead, Jake. Unmute.
Yeah. I was going to try to find a picture really quick and share screen. Maybe I'll do that in a minute, but let me just share this. Shortly after I landed in August in Djibouti, which is the hottest country on earth and a very destitute place. I got to go experience parts of that country that are on the edge and even right in the middle of the concentration of population, which is Djibouti City, the main city and capital. City of about 400,000 people, in an area maybe the size of Sussex, Wicomico, and Worcester counties. So similar population, although the entire population is really concentrated in one spot there. The way that they manage solid waste is that they dump it on the side of the road and set it on fire. It's not terribly different from many parts of the world. But every day, working with local government officials there while I was in Djibouti, and every day I got to experience times walking through streets, through villages, and particularly at dusk, when you'd see the fires out across the landscape of where solid waste was left, sometimes by sort of the solid waste management arm of government, and sometimes just by average citizens. It was a reminder of the challenge we have as human beings of being asked to be responsible for something that has lost its value but consumes limited space. And that plastic is there forever. And we're fortunate that we have the solid waste system that we do here. The first thing I saw when we got back to the US was I thought it was the most beautiful, pristine place I'd ever seen. Now, of course, I see a can and I'm furious, and as we all should be. But the contrast gives me hope. The contrast says to me that there are systems in place. We can do more. If we've done 80%, we can pick up the last 20%. When we've gotten to 95% effectiveness at managing solid waste, particularly plastics, we can get that last 5%. I know we can do more. We can continue to refine our efforts. But what we must do is shift the responsibility back to where it belongs, which is on the people that are designing the product, creating the product, and pushing that product from Del Mar, Maryland to Djibouti.
Thanks, Jay. The next question is interesting. Are there any domestic markets to process recycled plastic? Now, I remember years ago, there was a plastic recycling plant in Denton, and they were making porch furniture and welcome mats and things like that, but they've gone out of business. Is there anybody who can address that question about domestic markets?
I can. Yeah, there are domestic markets. There's actually a pretty large plant in Yadkinville, North Carolina. So there are plants in the United States that can take plastics, wash it, turn it into new products. So that's not the issue. The issue is the amount of it that can't be recycled and the volume of it that, is being produced. And it's like Jake said, until you get the money and the politics out of this and start making these companies accountable for the garbage that they're producing that's poisoning us all, it's going to increase. And we can't recycle our way out of this problem. This stuff, like you said, is around here for the next 500 to 1,000 years. If it isn't incinerated, it's still here. So, we have to find either alternatives or whatever it's going to take to get these companies, these chemical and oil companies, to stop making this stuff that's killing all of us. And it's not just us, of course, we all know that. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse.
No, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to ask Cindy Dillon to come on to answer the next one. Cindy is not only the chair of our Lower Eastern Shore group, but she is also the head of the Zero Waste team and is a member of the statewide Zero Waste team. And I know she knows about this. Is anyone working on a bottle bill?
Actually, I don't have an answer right now, but it is something that we want. It's something that we're considering. As far as I know, there's nobody in Maryland working on one right now, but Martha Ainsworth happens to be on here as one of the participants. And Martha, maybe you can help me there because maybe if there's anybody else in Maryland or close by.
Gary, can you unmute Martha, please? Just take a second.
Am I unmuted?
There she is.
Okay, great. We have wanted what we're talking about when we say a bottle bill
Yes.
is a beverage container deposit. It's a program that exists in 10 states, most of them going back to the 1970s, where when you purchase a beverage, you pay a deposit of say 5 or 10 cents, some places 15 cents. And you get it back when you return the beverage container. And what you get out of this is very clean, recyclable beverage containers. And with a 10-cent deposit, the states that have a 10-cent deposit get up to like about 90% return rate on these beverage containers. They're not contaminated with other stuff in the waste stream, like single stream recycling, and they're separated. The glass, the aluminum, the different colors of glass, the aluminum and everything, and they get very good recycling, very clean. And this is what a lot of producers that have post-consumer content requirements now for beverage containers or other products rely on the clean feedstock coming from these beverage container deposit states for the recycled content. So it's been very difficult to get new ones, though. The beverage industry is very strong lobbying, but I think that the tide may be turning because they need those clean sources of feedstock from bottle bill states for their post-consumer recycled content in their new products, now that a lot of that is being legislated. The other benefit of that is that beverage containers pretty much disappear from the side of the road. You won't find much beverage container litter. And I was on a webinar, well, actually a meeting with a colleague in New York State who said when they finally they have a bottle bill, they've had one for quite a while, but plastic water bottles were not in the early bottle bills, because back in the day, in the 1970s and 80s, we wouldn't dream of buying water in a bottle. We would take it from the tap, and there was no plastic pollution because that really hadn't really arrived. He said almost overnight, all the plastic bottles on the side of the road disappeared as soon as they incorporated them into the beverage container program. So the last big try for a beverage container deposit program was like 2015, 2016 in Maryland. And I think what the Sierra Club would like to see, and also Maryland PERC, that organization, is to get going on after the election with a new administration, hopefully to move forward on that. It's difficult to get anything passed in a it would be a multi-year campaign though, but the tide may be turning on bottle bills, so let's keep our fingers crossed. Anyone want to volunteer? Contact Cindy. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks so much, Martha. And the next question, I think Jennifer is the best person to answer this one. Jeff says that Safeway and Giant take back the plastic bags you do not take to your, takes back plastic bags that you do not take. To your knowledge, is this a ruse or is it really recycling when you turn in this plastic?
That's the $1 million question. Where is that film going? And, you know, we all watch the movie, a lot of it's getting shipped to Malaysia and Thailand, and it's actually being snuck around and set on fire and not being really used for much of anything. So, you know, again, this is where the real problem with plastic is we have fed into this fairy tale of, oh, we can recycle it. And, you know, we don't know where that stuff is going or if it's actually getting recycled. But yes, Food Lion, Giant, Walmart, all those places are taking their plastic bags back. And New Jersey is enacting a plastic bag ban in May. Delaware, of course, enacted a plastic bag ban a year ago. And of course, Walmart found their way around it by making thicker ML plastic bags that were not part of the ban. So, you know, when Maryland gets around to doing this, and I hope it's sooner rather than later, because there isn't a landfill in Maryland that doesn't hate those bags, it needs to be all encompassing. Any plastic bag that's used at a store should be banned outright, and do what I think it's Pennsylvania did recently, where, you know, they're not providing any bags. You either come with your own, or, you know, you walk out with your arms full of whatever the product is you just bought. But it's, you know, it's a simple get used to it kind of a thing. Buy a couple of those cloth bags, keep them in your car, bring them in with you. You know, once you get used to it, it's not so bad.
Right. Thanks, Jennifer.
I think Ryan has a comment to add to that.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
No worries at all. I just actually had a question for you, Ms. Albero. It's my understanding that the plastic bags, when they do get to the recycling facility, that they can cause problems, because if they get into the conveyor belt, they can actually cause the equipment to break. They effectively act like rubber bands and cause stress on the equipment, on the pulleys, cables, levers, things like that. So they are actually quite cumbersome to any recycling facility. Is that correct?
Yes, you know, they clog up the machinery, the grinders, the whole 9 yards, the conveyor belts. We don't have high-tech equipment here. Most of the Eastern Shore does not have high-tech anything. Somerset County brings their plastic to us. Dorchester County has brought their plastic to us because they have no way of recycling it. And our way, like I said, is through inmates, and they're busting open plastic bags, and they're, you know, that's ending up in trash. So yes, those bags are a detriment, not only in the recycling end of things, but, you know, if you go to any landfill, and I welcome anybody to come and tour with me. I give tours all the time. But anyway, you'll see as soon as those trash trucks open up and they start pushing the trash out, those bags become airborne and they're off like a rocket. They end up wrapped around trees. They're in the birds that are flying around the landfill. They kill them in varying ways that I don't need to repeat. But anyway, they are the bane of every landfill that I've ever come across. And if you're in the industry, you hate those things for good reason. They really need to be banned.
Okay, thanks very much for your answer, Jennifer. We have plastic free Queen Anne's County with us today. And they are asking, how are we going to deal with all the plastic containers at the grocery store? We can't buy a week's groceries without plastic. It's next to impossible and very frustrating. Who wants to take that? Jennifer, do you want to take that one, or anybody
I
else?
think Ryan's hand's up again.
Ryan's hand is up. Ryan, go for it.
So my response to that question is can you just make one maneuver and completely not buy any plastic anymore? The answer is no. But can you make small changes in what you purchase, each time? And can you keep finding creative ways to reuse the products, the food from the products or the container from the food that you buy? Yes, you can. So for example, instead of buying the plastic jar of peanut butter, buy a glass one, because you can recycle it. And even better, you can reuse it. So when you have some soup that you made and it's left over, you have a clean peanut butter glass jar now that you can use to store it. So, there's things like that. There's, don't buy the plastic bottles of water, buy the aluminum bottles of water. Yes, they cost a little bit more, but you're going to be able to recycle them. And the cost is worth it. So those are some of the things that we do on a commercial end. We look for packaging that is in recyclable materials. So when we bring in food to the restaurant, we are asking our broadline distributors and our local farmers to say, can you package this stuff in environmentally friendly packaging for us that will allow us to reuse it or recycle it? And that's gone pretty well. For example, we have a lot of local farmers. We have some local lettuce farmers, and what we've done is taken the plastic crates that we get our dairy in, and our plastic crates that we get our jalapenos and things like that. And we've given them to the local farmers and saying, hey, instead of giving us new boxes, can you just put everything back in these, right? And then we'll have them sitting out back for you, washed and ready. So when you drop off some lettuce, you can just pick up the crates, and then we just keep the cycle going. And then we reuse those plastic crates so they don't end up in the landfill. So it takes a lot of innovation, and it takes a little bit of thought and effort, but the results can be resounding when you put your mind to how you can shop every day, but still doing it in a more reusable manner, in a more environment-friendly manner.
Thank you, Ryan. And also keep in mind, Ryan mentioned it before, there's a bill in the Maryland General Assembly about the Producer Responsibility Act. And that's going to make a big difference if the industry has to take responsibility for their packaging. So you can help by supporting that bill. Brooke Learman is the sponsor of it. And go ahead and Google that. And I think you'd be interested in what's going on there. Okay, so actually, unless one of the other panelists wants to take it, I think I'm going to go to Martha with this one. Is there any pending legislation on the state or local level to ban plastic bags in grocery stores and other forms of retail? Martha's worked tirelessly on this.
Right. Well, there was a statewide plastic bag ban proposed in 2020. It would have banned plastic bags less than 4 mils thick. A mil is 1/1000th of an inch. So it'd be 4/1000ths of an inch thick. And it would have, to encourage reusable bags and not paper bags as a substitute, a 10-cent charge that stores would be required to pay for other bags. And that actually, it got pretty close to getting through, but they took the fee off of it. So it was just a straight ban on plastic bags less than 4 mils. And then the next year they brought the same bill back, and it didn't even get as far. It actually got as far as through the Senate one year, through the Senate committee. And then the next year it didn't go anywhere. It passed the House again. And so this year it was not introduced. But since then, we've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work in plastic bag bans. And in fact, we were kind of glad that that bill didn't come back this year, because as I think it was Jennifer mentioned, in Delaware, but also in other states, when you ban something less than a certain thickness, it's a signal to industry how much thicker they can make the bags to give away. we found, so we're hoping to get a fresh start with a new bill next year. There's not one here. And the way we can get one passed statewide really starts from the bottom up. All across the country, the states that have plastic bag bans started from the bottom up. They started with municipalities and counties banning plastic bags, and often also requiring a charge for other bags so that people would bring a reusable bag. You could think of it as a reusable bag campaign. And I think that's what we have to do. So what we're doing now is working across several municipalities and counties to try to get more of these bans locally in Maryland before the next session. So I was really pleased to hear from Mayor Day that he's working on this.
Definitely.
And a lot of volunteers on the Eastern Shore, on the Lower Eastern Shore. I know you're working on that. So thank you for that. But it's those building blocks that will bring it up to the state level. That is the lesson from across the country, and get rid of the thickness criterion for deciding what's banned. Ban all the film plastic bags, the single-use ones.
Great, thank you so much. And again, remember that Mayor Day is working on a plastic bag ban in Salisbury. And we do have a plastic bag ban in, I believe it's Queen Anne's County, and some other counties across the bridge. So we're slowly but surely getting there. You know, it's going to take.
Susan, Mayor Day might want to add a little bit to that.
Jake, you want to add some? Did you say Jake? Jake, do you want to add to that?
I can, real quick. Yeah, it's Chestertown is the other is the place on the shore. But you know, I guess what I'd share is, you know, we've got our legislation drafted. It would ban all plastic bags within retail establishments and put a 10-cent fee on paper bags. That is, you know, talking to some of the folks who were proponents of the statewide bill. That's where it got hung up. We also have a $500 civil penalty, so a civil infraction per violation of the law. So every single violation, so each plastic bag sold after the ban went into effect would be a $500 fine. The intent there, of course, would be to rapidly show, you know, that we're going to come down on you hard. This is not something you can skirt or anything like that. And you know, the courts around here have a way of approaching those that would ensure that it doesn't happen again, even though we wouldn't end up seeing a financial windfall there. But this is sort of, I think, the direction that we need to take. And if it means stepping out in front of the state, I think that's something we're prepared to do if the General Assembly is not prepared to act.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for, you always have so much insight, Mayor Day. And the next question is for Dr. Pearson. Could you please tell us, what are the health implications for humans of microplastics being trapped in the marshlands?
So that's a little bit outside of the study that we're conducting right now, but what happens with a lot of microplastics is they get into the food web, they go up the different trophic levels. So the tiny zooplankton that I look at might pick them up. We know that we've got a graduate student here at Horn Point who did a lot of work showing that oyster larvae can ingest them, and it may have some impacts on the growth of those larvae, especially when there's lots and lots of microplastics out there. The issue with trapping them in the marshes is that these are big nursery areas for lots of organisms and things like that. And so if you've got a high concentration of microplastics, you're going to get them into the food chain and they're just going to go up the food chain. And then that means that we're going to ingest them. I think I read a statistic recently that you know, we ingest about a credit card's worth of plastic. I can't remember what time scale, but it doesn't really matter because you shouldn't be eating a credit card, I don't think.
I think it's a week.
So
it's every week.
I think it's every week, right? Yeah. So that's the issue. You know, we don't want them to get into the marshes. We don't want them to get into the ocean. But we need to know where they're coming from and what's happening with them. And the marshes are a place we already know they trap sediment, marshes and seagrass beds and things like that. And it's likely that it's also a place where we're trapping plastics. We know lots of our really important food organisms, like the crabs, like Ryan was talking about. We know oysters rely on that water that's passing through there, right? So lots of the organisms and lots of larval fish use these marshes as nursery grounds before they get bigger and then move out of the tributaries into the deeper bay and out into the ocean in some cases. And so that's what's really important, I think, about understanding what's the dynamics of that, of the microplastics moving through the system. And then also how they break down in the system and contribute to microplastics. So that's one thing I didn't really mention. We're also interested in large debris that's sitting, that gets trapped in those, in the marshes and in the grass beds. That's going to break down, and that's going to be a big source of the microplastics, right in the system. You're producing the microplastics, which are then going to get into the food web and on up into humans.
Okay, Christina, are we out of time on questions now?
Yeah, we want to leave some time for each of our panelists to be able to have maybe one more minute to kind of give us your closing remarks. We are so grateful to have all of you here for this interchange of ideas, but if it's okay with each of you, we'll go back through the order that we originally came on, and give you about a minute to offer your closing remarks. So back to you, Dr. Pierson, if that's okay.
Sure, thank you. I just want to thank the Sierra Club and all the panelists. I certainly learned a lot tonight. We're just embarking on this project, and we're hoping to add to the information about plastics in the Chesapeake Bay region. It's unfortunate we have to do it, but we're going to try to figure out what's out there and try to provide the best information for folks who make a lot of the decisions about what to do about it. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you Christina and Cindy and everybody else at Sierra.
We're so glad to have you here. So thank you. Jennifer Albero, can we have your final remarks?
Yes, I'd like to thank the Sierra Club for putting this on and for everybody who's attended and participated. It's been eye-opening in many ways. And again, I just like to push that if anybody wants to find out where a way is, I'm here. I give tours. We go up Trash Mountain, all 220 feet, and you can see not only where your plastic recycling is going and how that is being handled, but all the rest of it. So just give me a call and we'll go for a hike.
That's a fantastic offer, by the way, a fantastic offer. You will not forget the experience. Definitely. Mayor Day.
Look, I feel humbled to be asked to join the other four speakers tonight. And I want to thank all of the individuals, Christina and Susan, all of you who put effort and time into making this happen. You obviously attracted a lot of participants, but let me say this, the panel you put together indicates the solution to the problem, that it's not one sector, it's not one entity, it's going to require cities and counties, NGOs, businesses, educators, all to work together to address this on all fronts through advocacy, through public education, through training the next generation. So this is the model. This conversation is the model for how we actually make a difference.
Thank you. Well stated. Appreciate that. Ryan James.
I mean, I just can't thank you guys enough for putting this on and letting us all speak to inspire change for the better. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to the Sierra Club. Thank you to all the attendants of this great production. One thing I would say is that what you can do as a consumer is, you vote with your dollar, and you don't know how powerful that is until people start doing it. So if you choose to spend money in places where they are practicing environmentally friendly practices, then businesses will have no choice to adapt and start getting on board. So, please go out there, vote with your dollar, think of different ways that you can reduce, reuse, and recycle on a daily basis. And also keep getting educated. Never take anything for granted. Do research. It's so great to have these panelists because they're actually showing you what goes on behind the curtain and how you can really make a difference. So once again, everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hema, Bhaskaran.
I want to thank everyone who is here. because I just want to say just this one word and stop with that. What I saw, what I heard, what I felt is hope. So thank you.
That's so true. And that is such a blessing from this gathering of all of these different sectors and ideas and actions that are being taken. What a wealth of information and inspiration from each of you and collectively as a group. We have more knowledge now. And when we know better, we can do better. And we can take positive action, and that begets more positive actions. When you bring your reusable bag shopping, you'll inspire someone else to consider it in the future. When you're refilling your reusable water bottle in a convenience store, instead of purchasing the plastic bottle in that one-time use, somebody else is going to see that, and that's going to make them start to think as well. Both from our conversation as well as my own personal self-scrutiny after I watched the film of the story of plastic, I had to look at my own daily habit of drinking 2 cups of herbal mint tea, which is something I very much enjoy doing. But I found I have my own little sachets that I open every day. And in 1 year's time, my own personal 730 pieces of material that can't be composted, can't be recycled, and is just part of the waste stream. I commit to doing better. And I thank you all for joining us on the journey of trying to do better in our actions. Thank you again to each of our panelists, and most especially to the organizers of this event, which the big burden of that goes to our Lower Eastern Shore Chair, Cindy Dillon, who deserves a huge pat on the back for all of this, and who will share our final thoughts for the night. Cindy.
And I want to thank all of you. I want to thank our wonderful panelists, Christina, Joe, Susan, all the people who work behind the scenes to make this all happen. Gary, our technical assistant. And I want to thank all of you who attended and who just showed up, got involved, and posed such thoughtful questions. I know you're concerned about the effects of plastic pollution on our environment, or you wouldn't even be here. So how will what we just shared inform where we're going, how we're going forward? I have a few suggestions. I would be remiss if I didn't suggest that one way that you can get involved is to join the local Sierra Club group. I know we have people here from a lot of different areas. If you happen to live in Dorchester, Somerset, Wicomico, or Worcester counties, that's the Lower Eastern Shore group. But for those of you from other counties on the Eastern Shore where you don't currently have a group, you're more than welcome to join us in our group activities and to come to our meetings. For others, because we have people even here from Iowa, believe it or not, we have people from all over. And there are Sierra clubs all across the country. I can't guarantee that all of them are working on plastic pollution, but I can guarantee that that is one of the big things that we are doing here in the Lower Eastern Shore. That is one of our prime targets, is working on plastic pollution and trying to decrease the amount of plastic. So to find information about our local group, Google Sierra Club Maryland chapter, and under groups, go ahead and click on Lower Eastern Shore group. And there you'll find a lot more about what our group is doing, including that we have a zero waste team, and much of its efforts are targeting plastic pollution. We're always looking for new members. Activities throughout the year include things like tabling events at farmers markets, writing letters to the editor, petitioning our local elected officials to help with much needed legislation. And then you can look at our campaign page to get other zero waste ideas. While you're there, go ahead and explore the rest of the Maryland chapter webpage. And again, we would love to have you join us. If you have questions about that, in a minute, we're going to put up a slide that will show you the webpage and the an email address. Another way you can get involved is by going to the homepage of thestoryofstuff.org. The Story of Stuff is the company that put together the story of plastic. Go to the storyofstuff.org page, go on to the tab that says Take Action, and then go to the one that says fight plastic pollution. There are so many campaign options there. No plastic bailouts, bottle deposits, which is Martha talked about that, take the plastic-free pledge and more. And by exploring that site, I'm sure you can find something that interests you. Whatever you decide, I encourage you to make a choice to do something. Please don't let this be the end of your involvement. The time for action is not in the next 5 years or even in the next year. We can't wait that long. It's now. Please join with us in our campaign to reduce single-use plastics and help us protect our treasured Lower Eastern Shore. Thank you all for all that you're already doing for the environment. And that concludes our program for this evening. Thanks very much for coming. Good night.
Thank you all for being here. Good night, everyone.